And there's the Yoko Taro we all know and love. Okay, so episode 2 was freaking fantastic. Assuaged every concern I had with this show. I am now hooked. I am now sold on this entire idea of doing an anime adaptation of the story of Nier Automata. Because they are doing it correctly, because they are not going one for one from the game. They are willing to take their own creative liberty with it, they're willing to do their own pacing, and it's not rushed, it's well paced and thought out, it's provocative, and it suits the anime format. This episode is the reason we have the idea of the 3-episode rule, because the first episode was the hook. Here's some cool action scenes, here's a nice little introduction to the world, it's all nice and cool, right? Okay, now, here's the existentialism you stay with Nier Automata for. Now, I do have to preface this, I have no idea how this will land for anyone who hasn't actually played Nier Automata, because this entire episode felt like a love letter to fans. That's what it felt like to me. There are so many references to later parts of the game, but also just randomly hidden crap throughout the game, like the novels being, I want to say, adapted? Like, why is Lily here? That one intrigued me. For those who don't know, she's a character from one of the novels you can find in Nier Automata. In like Root B or something, if I looked it up, I never found them myself. So we're talking some obscure Nier Automata lore, and they just adapted into like half the episode. They're really leaning into Root B, thank God, with the picture book animations periodically strewn throughout. They had that entire plotline with the robot trying to tend to some flowers. Oh, it's so good. I am not gonna lie to you, there's a part of my mind thinking that was a meal the entire time because of all the Lunateers. I'm pretty sure those are Lunateers. You had the screenshot. Now, if you are not played or familiar with Nier Drakengard lore, this one will have completely flown over your head. You will not have noticed it, but it's one of the most critical pieces of lore in the entire series of Nier. Near the very beginning, when they were doing a broadcast from the moon to all the other people, to all the members of the android resistance, they did a sequence of quick cuts where they showed scene after scene after scene of essentially human history. And one of the scenes was a news broadcast depicting some kind of giant monster landing in Japan. If you do not know the origins of Nier, that scene will make no sense to you. And they just kind of gloss over the giant monster in, I want to say, Tokyo. And they just don't address it. If you're familiar with Drakengard, you know exactly who the hell that was. I'll give a little bit of context because who has time to go play Drakengard? Drakengard was an old series from years ago. It was an RPG series set in this medieval fantasy-esque world. It was dark fantasy, very dark and depressing. Dealt with a lot of existential themes of sadness, depression, all these heavy emotions that Yoko Taro games are so known for. And the game, like Nier, had multiple endings. And the final ending, Ending E, was originally conceived to be a joke ending. It was just there to be weird for weird's sake, but the Nier franchise spawned out of that ending. So it had endings A through E, but only ending E is canonical to Nier. And in ending E, the main dragon from the game of Drakengard gets teleported after fighting a battle against giant baby ancient things. I know this sounds weird, but you're gonna have to get used to it. It's Nier and Drakengard. There will be weirder things. I know that sounds hard, judging from my last sentence, but there will be weirder things. Lord help us all when we get to the desert. So the main dragon, I believe her name is Angeal, I'm pretty sure, or I'm just playing too much Crisis Core recently, is teleported to Earth and is essentially shot down out from above the Tokyo sky by the Air Force. It's shot down and it dies, but as it falls and lands, it disintegrates into these red particles. Not necessarily particles, because you still see the corpse, but from that corpse, magic is introduced as a concept to Earth. And from that moment on, everything changes. And that is how we get to Nier. And then Nier Automata. Because Angeal wasn't the only thing that came over. One of the ancients, which was this like giant baby primordial monster thing, also came along with it, which caused this disease called white chlorination, which essentially ravaged the human population, and then that brings us into Nier. So you had these two foreign concepts, these entities being brought into Earth, which completely changed the entire landscape of human civilization from that point on, cut thousands of years into the future, and we somehow wind up with Nier Automata. I don't want to explain everything, just the stuff from the game. But again, that is like, I want to say maybe 1 second of footage in the anime, and there's another. At the end of one of the storybook moments, they do a cut, a transition, if you will, over to this still image of machines reading books in a library. And if you didn't play Nier Replicant, or if you didn't play Nier Automata, that scene will be of no consequence to you, but if you played, you know exactly what that library is. In Nier Replicant, there was a library as one of the central hubs in town, where you got a lot of your quests from. That library is also found in Nier Automata, near the end of the game. And I won't say how, but they are clearly going for something here. And I just find it fascinating, because I think one of the cool things is, if you have this knowledge accumulated from playing or researching these games and these stories, those moments hit really hard, but if you don't, then it creates this air of mystery, as if something great is going on, and something greater is to be revealed, and that's also a cool feeling to listen, in my opinion. Because Nier Automata managed to do that, where depending upon how much information from the games before Nier Automata that you had, you went into the game and you progressed through the game with different questions that would alter and color your perception of events that would transpire. And I think one of my favorite things about this episode is just overall the pacing. How they were willing to slow down and let you breathe in the world. Hey, you're not going to be doing a bunch of side quests in the city ruins to let you be introduced to the world. How do we do that with an anime? How about we tell you these couple of short stories back to back, or parallel to one another, one of which is this machine that discovers flowers. It's like, hey, I want to take care of these. So he plants some seeds, protects the seeds, lets them germinate. Cool. He's creating life. Why is he doing this? We don't know. But we know that he's fascinated and dedicated towards this one singular goal of planting these flowers. Some other machines come along, like, hey, what's going on over here? No words are needed for this entire section, by the way. These other machines come by like, what's going on over here? Hey, what if we help? And they start helping, and all of a sudden, the flowers have engrossed the entire landscape of all the free remaining dirt there. There's flowers blooming, and if you know Nier lore, you know those flowers in particular hold significance for the story, at least for certain characters, which makes me think we're gonna bring in Emil into this picture at some point, if they haven't already. There are so many different ways they can recontextualize certain events from the game, but tell them and expand on them in the anime format, and I'm so optimistic for this show's future. Because then I took another look at the name of the show, version 1.1a. Ah, yes. They essentially advertised, hey, there's gonna be some differences here. And then those storybook little motifs, those little movies they showed you, where they had that narrator narrating these kind of vague events of happening in the machine's life, of them finding treasures, of this one machine having their mother and father killed before them, and talking about loneliness, or that they found some kind of magma erupting from a volcano, and it gave them all these emotions. And that one in particular, the volcano one, a lot of people who don't know the lore, hell, they could have played Nier Replicant and Nier Automata and still don't know this piece of lore. This is how obscure they're getting with these references, and I love it so much for this. In Nier Replicant, there was a dungeon in an abandoned factory, not the one from episode 1, and a different one. And in that factory, there was a giant robot. Not the machines we know from Automata, a different kind of like humanoid-built machine. And it roamed the factory, and then it found a little boy. It was a shade, which was the primary monster from Nier Replicant. But they became friends. They became buddies. They became brothers. And through the events of Nier Replicant, tragedy strikes, the kid dies, but the robot remains. Battered and beaten and broken, but he clings on to life. And in a short story told separately from the games, I'll leave a link to this in the description down below, it's literally just P33's fandom page. The short story that I was talking about was The Fire of Prometheus. And the machine I was talking about in that abandoned factory, which is the junk heap from Nier Replicant, his name was P33, or Beepy. And essentially, after he gets absolutely train wrecked in the game, he lies there, just soaking up knowledge, becomes hyper intelligent, eventually launches himself into space, and gives the machines that he sees, that we know from Automata, that level of intelligence, all those emotions. And that's what the name of the story was talking about, the Fire of Prometheus. Because like Prometheus gave fire to ancient humanity, he gave emotions and intelligence to these machines. That's the story that's being referenced in that scene. They are weaving some obscure but very critical lore from Nier into this anime, and it's intriguing how they're telling it. Because we haven't even gotten to the desert section yet. I thought that was exactly what was going to be covered in episode 2, but we didn't even get there. We only have a few minutes of footage with 2B and 9S throughout this entire episode. It's not much, actually. And it surprised me, but I'm kind of pleasantly surprised that they're willing to take their time with this episode and just let the world itself breathe in this style of storytelling. Because in the game, the way they land in the city ruins is on the top of the roof. You go to a different building, you climb down, you're in the city ruins, go find the resistance, Bob's your uncle. But what happens here is as they land, they save a group of resistance fighters from a horde of machines, so that event is already completely different to how it happens in the game. It may just be a stylistic choice, but let's be honest, it's Yoko Taro. For those who haven't played the game, nothing's just a stylistic choice. I am so curious where episode 3 is going to go, because I now fundamentally have no freaking clue. But they're starting to bring in, and quickly at that, the existentialism and the giant, overt, looming, dark, depressing themes and motifs from the game, from the latest sections of the game, into the show, and I'm so curious where they're going to take this into the future. So yeah, I'm going to call the video there for the day. Thank you for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment down below with your thoughts on episode 2 of Nier Automata's anime. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your perspectives and where you think the show's going to go from here. And leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And hit the bell button to be notified for future videos. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. See you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.